Shall we round things off with a look at Frozen 2 then?
Yeah, shall we? I'm only going to make up an intro to this. Or Drew, do you want to take a stab at it, or shall we do it together, or shall we hold hands? Or because I'm going to be blatantly honest with you, I can't tell you what the plot is. I can't remember.
How much more of an introduction does it need, other than this is now more Frozen?
Yeah. Right. Frozen, the incredibly mediocre Disney film from about 2014, made all of the money at the box office. So obviously there was going to be a sequel. Disney have made a sequel. It's also incredibly mediocre. There's apparently the great unanswered question from the first one was, why is Elsa magic? You'll be unsurprised to know it wasn't a question I had, because I don't care. But this film sets out to answer the great question of, why is she magic? And the answer is
stuff.
Because we saw The Fifth Element, we sort of stole that, because she's basically Lilu, but also because Disney makes all the money from Marvel. She's also now a superhero. So she kind of wrecks the world somehow. And then we're reminded that her great kingdom is about 4 streets. And to save her great kingdom of 4 streets, she goes north to some fogged-in forest where some people from her kingdom and some people from her, turns out her mother's people, have been locked in there for ages, and they have to undo some great wrong and blah, 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 and really they've basically turned into a Marvel superhero, and it's so boring, and it ends, but not before there's been an hour and a half of the bloody snowman.
You're right. Arundel is about the size of Shield Hill, isn't it? So one queries where its financial power stems from. But listen, I you know that I enjoy the first movie more than yourself, Drew. So I've been subjected to that film in double digits now, and it's not that I'm desperate ever to see it again, but the fact that I've never really objected to watching it with the kids when they've decided that's what they want to watch. And I think we're up to like 12, 13 viewings or something that I have been privy to now. I've never felt like hanging myself. It's acceptable enough. So it's of a certain quality. I think it's more than mediocre, but I get where you're coming from. And I think where I would definitely agree with you, this is just exactly more of the same. Yeah. So wherever you were at in your opinion on the first one is probably where you'll be with your opinion on that one, and that's I expect.
It's more of the same.
The chances are, if you're going to have any interest in Frozen 2, you've seen it already anyway. But because it's going to be you've got young kids somewhere in your family, right? Whether they're your kids or a relative's kids or something like that, that's going to be why you've watched Frozen. It's not going to be because you were desperate to see it as an adult. I was a bit worried about what I was walking into going to see it with the kids, because there had been some feedback initially that they're like, oh man, it's kind of weird. It's like it's filled with like a weird level of existential angst that wasn't in the first film, and I don't know what film those people watched, but it certainly wasn't the cut I saw.
It's a magical talking snowman.
Yeah, exactly. And whose great gag is that he talks about a person who doesn't exist called Samantha. But listen, it makes my kids laugh makes my kids laugh all the time, so it's worth the money. Wherever you sat in terms of opinion on the first one is probably where you will sit in terms of the opinion on this one. I have now seen this 3 times. I will no doubt get to double digits with this as well. The thought of it doesn't bother me. I mean, I've usually got headphones in instead and just sort of nod at the kids every time I see their mouths moving, because I assume they're talking to me and I'm listening to a podcast or something in the meantime anyway. But yeah, it is an animated film of a standard that is acceptable, and it's not the Emoji Movie. So
I wouldn't have watched this at all if I hadn't been for taking my niece to see the first one. And I think I went with my mum and my sister and my niece, my eldest niece at the time, like, yep, all of the adults found it incredibly mediocre, and Zoe thought it was okay. I think her sisters like it more.
Yeah.
And I watched the second one again before this. Like, yep, but it's still incredibly mediocre. And fortunately, that's only the second time I'd seen the first one, Craig. I pity you. First of all, I don't like Disney films. I've never liked Disney films. I think there are only 5 that are any good. Of all the films, the animated films that Disney have made, 5 are any good, right? And 2 of them, I'm not entirely convinced are good. It's more just good memories of them from childhood being the few that I liked. Big point too, it's a Disney film, so it relies on music, and I think all the music's rotten. Well, rotten strong, bland is the word.
Yeah, there's certainly nothing. I'm sure we'll probably agree on this part that there's certainly nothing that will stick in the conscience of the zeitgeist quite like Let It Go did, regardless of what your feelings on Idina Menzel's relentless screaming of lyrics.
Adele Dazeem.
Adele Dazeem, yes.
But no, it's rotten. Well, no, that song's not rotten. It's so
That's really harsh, man.
that song is so bland. There's nothing to it. It does stick in your head, but there's nothing to it. But it's that first film had a tolerable song, which is the one about Fixer Upper, and the second film has one fewer tolerable songs, so none.
You didn't like In the Summer from the first film. Is that just because you don't like Olaf? Because that is a genuinely funny song.
It's okay. I don't have any particular grievance against it. Like one, that's what all happen to warm things, cold things when it's warm. Yeah, but no. The problem with this, the big problem of the second film is that they've just doubled down on the amount of the annoying comic sidekick. And again, in very small doses, Olaf would probably be fine. And I do quite like Josh Gad. I actually like him in the live-action version of Beauty and the Beast. But I just that character is like, yeah, in small doses it's fine. It's in like a huge chunk of the second film, and it's not for me.
There you go.
Yeah,
like I say, I suspect anyone with a vested interest knows what they think of it already because they're going to have been subjected to it anyhow, and our opinions are probably moot on this one.
Yeah, I thought this was basically the same film as the first one. When I watched the first one, I would not necessarily have thought that any of the songs would make any impact on the cultural consciousness whatsoever, because I didn't think any of them were all that great. Obviously, I was wrong, given how everyone was singing Let It Go for years afterwards. I presume I'm in the same boat with this one. There's no single song in that entire film that stuck out as being in any way memorable, but maybe there is, I don't know. Let's go and ask the kids. But yes, it was an entirely competent animated film, and yeah, if you liked Frozen, this is more of Frozen. There you go.
There you go.
$1.4 billion it's made so far, because people have no taste.
Cool.
They should all go and see The Lighthouse instead.
I might show my kids. I might swap it out on the network drive for The Lighthouse. Take it.